this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. I'm your host. This evening's topic is a general overview of exactly what the Speaker of the House's office does up in Hartford and how that affects the local area. And with me to discuss this evening's topic is Brian O'Connor from Speaker Brendan Sharkey's office. Brian.
How you doing, Peter?
How are you, buddy? Welcome.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. You too. You too. So what exactly does Brian O'Connor do for Speaker Brendan Sharkey?
I'm Speaker Sharkey's Director of Policy and Research.
Okay.
So I help develop policy, and I have a group of analysts underneath me who basically do a lot of the research and help put proposals together for him and also evaluate the other legislators' work as well.
Now, as far as I know, we're probably in the middle of session right now, towards the middle, because is it the long session this year or the short session this year?
It's the long session.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, we're currently in the public hearing and committee bill process.
Okay, and what does that entail?
Right now, because it is a long session, individual legislators can propose bills, and the committees raise bills themselves.
Right.
And what that basically entails is, they look at the different topics, like one of them. If you want to look at it, is one of the Speaker's initiatives is from the Moore Commission.
Okay.
And he puts bills forward, to look at minimum budget requirements for education and other things that he's been promoting throughout the years up at the state capitol.
Sure.
And the committee process begins. You have a public hearing. People have the ability to testify, sign up.
Right.
And then after that, the committee evaluates the bills, see if they need changes, and then eventually either decide to put them on an agenda to move forward for the full House and Senate to consider, or they decide to hold them back and not take them up and maybe revisit them next year.
And basically redo them, go through and tweak them again if need be, and
yes, it's a constant process. It's funny. From my years up at the State House, there's still bills that we're considering and working on. So nothing really changes.
Nothing changes.
It's incremental. And
Okay.
So you're always fixing and working on things.
What are some of the bills and agenda items that affect the people in my viewing and my listening area?
Well, I think, the concepts that I've been working on for the Speaker are pretty universal.
Okay.
And the big promotion that he is doing is on regional efficiencies and just regionalism in general.
Okay.
I think one of the things that you look at Connecticut, we're 169 towns.
Yes.
And we do a lot of things individually. We're a home rule state.
Right.
And I think from his days as planning and development chairman, he realized that we could do a lot of things more efficiently and better if we were to pool resources between the different municipalities. So down here locally, you have the River Cog, and that was just formed within the last year or two. Right. And I think a lot of the things that, what one town can do, maybe they can either do it more efficiently or more cost effectively if they did it together.
Okay. Now, you don't work do you work close with the towns and municipalities, or is that handled by another aspect of the office?
I was going to say directly, I do talk with some of the first selectmen that are participants in our Moore Commission.
Okay.
But as far as day-to-day, I do not. But they have representatives up in Hartford that I work through.
Okay. Now, as far as the Moore Commission, what does the Moore Commission entail, and how detailed is it?
It's basically a working group. They meet throughout the session. Actually, we just named a chairman, Jonathan Steinberg. He's a state representative in his third term out of Westport, who will be the chair of that committee. They actually have their first meeting coming up on Thursday. All right. And they kind of evaluate and propose proposals together for the following session. So a lot of the work that we're doing today is like on special education reform. That was a byproduct of the Moore Commission last year. That was chaired by, it was actually a bipartisan commission that was chaired by both Democrats and Republicans, Representative Michelle Cook, Representative Terry Wood, and also Representative Becker.
Okay. And as far as the local area, let's talk about regionalization in in
You know,
in the area?
you know, one of the proposals, you know, the one that maybe not the most important bill, but it is one that I think is effective as far as pooling resources, is regionalizing, creating a fund that will regionalize animal shelters.
All right.
That is one of the proposals. I think the other thing is looking at our what they call a RESC. You know, these are regional education centers.
Okay, sure.
And you know, working through them for special education reform. So that'll be working with some of our local groups.
Okay. And as far as I'm looking at some notes here, and we're talking about property taxes.
Yeah, property tax
Let's talk
reform.
about property tax reform.
You know, one of the proposals that the speaker is championing is basically keeping property on the tax rolls.
Okay.
Right now, we haven't been fully funding a program called Pilot,
Okay.
payment in lieu of taxes. And this is when a college or hospital or other nonprofit owned property,
Right.
basically they're tax exempt, so towns don't collect property
Right,
taxes.
correct.
So if you look at the new emergency center in Westbrook, the town of Westbrook is able to recapture basically 30 cents on the dollar of the property tax dollar
Okay.
from that property, but it does take it off the tax roll. So it basically, what we're going to be doing is that in the future, any property that is taken off the tax rolls by a hospital or college, we're going to maintain that tax base by allowing the assessor to maintain the tax bills on those properties.
Now, as far as I understand that the governor unveiled his budget not long ago, a couple weeks ago.
Yes,
How's it look?
late February. Well, it's a very difficult budget.
Is it?
It's a tough year. We're about, if you look over the 2 years, we're about $2.2 billion in the red,
Okay.
and 1.1 each year.
All right.
And it's just one of those things where, you know, the Appropriations Committee, they're actually having their public hearing process now.
Okay.
Hearing from the different constituent groups that have seen their budgets reduced. And, you know, their task is basically to come up with a balanced budget to see how those cuts may affect different agencies,
Right.
see if some may be restored and others that you may maintain some of the governor's cuts. And I think the other thing to do is to balance it off with revenues, and the Finance Committee will be starting their process shortly.
Now, I'm sure you as well as I know about this wonderful winter and this wonderful weather we've been having. I'm sure that the towns and the budgets are pretty depleted.
Yeah,
Pretty depleted by salt, sand, and other.
As is the state. It's been a heavy load. I think, you know, we budget pretty well for it, especially over the last couple of years, but still, I think this has been an especially cold and snowy winter that many local budgets are probably busted right now on the sand and
Exactly.
salt. And, you know, I haven't heard anything about any relief
No.
being asked for at the state level. I don't know where the money would come from for that. You probably have to look for federal funds.
And I'm sure there's federal funds out there too.
Well, even that might be a stretch, but at the same time, you know, I haven't really heard any initiative to do that.
All right. What are some of the other hot topics up at the Capitol for this session?
Transportation seems to be the hot committee this year.
All right.
You have a bill on allowing Tesla to sell their vehicles directly to consumers.
Really?
You also have a bill to allow Uber, which is a
The car
ride-sharing
shares?
company,
Yep, sure.
to allow them to work in the state. The taxi cab industry is a little concerned about them not being regulated and the taxi
Right.
cab industry being regulated and having two different set of rules. Uber is asserting that they are not a taxi cab service
No.
and are more of a transportation network company. And, you know, so they're trying to work through that process. And we actually had, it's probably still going on right now as I speak, a public hearing. So we're going to try to work through that as well.
You think that'll work in the state?
I think both companies are very innovative.
Okay.
I think what we're going to try to balance is both, you know, market opportunities, allowing companies to thrive in Connecticut, but at the same time, make sure that the process is fair for the companies that are already located here in Connecticut.
I was gonna say, and if people can go sign up to testify. I'm sure you've had meetings where there's one person that comes and testifies, or people that come. There's 200 people that come and testify.
Today they had to actually move it into a bigger room, so I don't know how many people, but probably a couple hundred were there today.
Wow, it's pretty impressive.
So yeah, people can sign up. Most committees, there's a 3-minute rule, so you get to put your name in, and depending on the committee, it might be a lottery, but others, it might be first come, first serve. And then you get to talk on either side of the issue that you're on, and receive questions and answer them from the individual legislators.
Okay, and it's pretty well informative, and it's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people get, particularly the committee chairman, rely on that testimony to help put the bill together, make changes based on that comment period. And then after receiving those comments and hearing from other representatives and senators, they make changes and actually try to pass that bill based on that information.
Now, realistically, if the Uber and the transportation public hearing that's being held today.
Yes.
Once it is held and everything's done, how long does it take to get on the floor and get voted on?
Well, it depends on the bill. Some bills have to go through different committees. Right now, depending on what is in the bill, it may have to go to the insurance committee, because insurance seems to be a hot topic within the debate.
Okay.
Also, if we put in a licensure or some kind of regulatory oversight, either at DOT or DMV, then we will have to appropriate dollars for that, or at least find revenue sources to cover the cost of regulating them. So. It'll probably have to go through maybe 1 or 2 more committees. Okay. And then based on the negotiations and the committee process, it would probably hit the floor sometime in April or May.
And you think it'll get voted on this session?
I suspect it will.
Okay.
I suspect it will. It's kind of a high-profile issue. And depending on whether it becomes law, I think it'll be at least considered in the House and maybe the Senate as well.
Would you mind sticking around for another segment? We're about to go into a break.
I'd love to.
All right, we'll be right back after a short break.
Let's be real. There are days when every mom wants to tell her kids to take a hike.
That's actually a pretty good idea.
Because when you take us hiking,
Or let us run outside,
acting silly,
getting dirty,
and helping in the garden,
you're not only making your day better,
you're making our lives healthier and happier.
playing outside is not only fun,
It helps us feel our best inside and out.
so next time when Mom wants you to take a hike,
Tell her to go to beoutthere.org to find fun ideas for helping kids enjoy the great outdoors.
let's be honest, it's not bad for the parents either.
They're so cute at this age. Be out there!
And welcome back to this week's edition of the Pete Mezzetti Show. Sitting here with Brian O'Connor from Speaker Brendan Sharkey's office. Sir, welcome back, buddy.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you, too. So the first segment we talked about transportation. Let's talk about education for the opening of the second segment.
Sure. One of the speaker's initiatives, and actually it's kind of a highlight within the Education Committee this year. And the bill hasn't been drafted yet, but we will soon be considering a bill on minimum budget requirements that boards of education have to do. So basically what that means is what a town spends on education in, let's say, 2014. Okay. When they set their budgets for 2015, they have to set it at the same rate plus. So basically, you can never really reduce it other than for declining enrollment and some other efficiencies. Sure. But as it turns out, the reductions can only be 0.5 or 1%. And I think we're looking at it because you have a lot of towns with dramatic declines in enrollment, where we had a bubble of students. Those kids are graduating now. And I think what you're going to see is that it just doesn't make sense to spend the same amount of money on education due to a declining enrollment. And this will give towns flexibility in managing their budgets, but also maintaining high-performing districts as well.
How about implement the common school calendar? How does that work?
Right now, this has already become law.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that what you see, and this is actually a regional initiative, what they're trying to do is have everyone have the same school calendar.
Sure.
And the logic behind this is that for stuff like school bus contracts, you can actually go out to bid with one contract, and multiple towns can leverage their capacity, the number of towns that are bidding on it, and actually hopefully get a lower price, which will save taxpayers money and also be more efficient for the bus companies as well. I think the other thing too is if you're just looking at different scheduling, towns would be off at the same time. They'd have school on the same days. And there is a little bit buffer because there are some unique features within different municipalities. So there is some wiggle room. I think it's 4 or 5 days flexibility. But overall, they'd be able to work together and be more efficient in some of the things that they procure.
And you said it's already implemented. How's it working out so far?
Yeah, there was a delay of 1 year to give towns a little bit more time to accommodate the change. And I believe it's this September it will go live, so to speak. And the towns will work with their local RESCs that I had described earlier to basically set their schedules and start the school year on the same day, end the school year on the same day, and then eventually, as I said before, there might be opportunities when contracts expire to pool those and bet on them and hopefully lower what they're paying for it today.
I was going to say, you said there's wiggle room snuck in the program. I'm assuming that would mean snow days.
Snow days would be a part of it. Particularly a region like ours where the shoreline might get a little bit less snow, and there's no need to cancel it. Maybe just a delay, but you might get more in the upper part of the county.
Exactly.
They may decide to call it. I think the other thing it allows for is, let's say, some towns close down on election day.
Yes.
And other towns remain open because they use a different facility.
Correct.
And then another town may have Veterans Day off, but the other may be open. They might still be able to have control over those dates so they can maintain their current practices.
Now let's talk about school construction services and phototyping. Prototyping.
That's a bill that we're currently drafting that will try to provide efficiencies and, again, creating a prototype. Both in design features and also the components that go into school construction.
All right.
So while we know and recognize that every property is unique, there is some thought that if you can get a basic design built, or at least set up for towns to evaluate, you might see some savings so not everyone has to go out and redesign and get new designs, and hopefully we'll save some money and again, what might work for one town, they'll have a different set of plans that they can work off of.
Exactly, and then what might work for one town couldn't work well for another.
Yeah, each town's different. They have unique needs, and we recognize that. And hopefully, this will be something though that can establish at least a baseline of the design work can be completed, and then build off of that.
Okay. And what else should everybody know about the education as far as going on up in Hartford?
Well, those are probably the hot topics.
All right.
I think the other thing that we're working on is English language learners. And with Connecticut, actually 35,000 students, I think, currently have a different language, non-native English, as their main language. And I think one of the key things in the cornerstones to our future economy and future success is to help these students, give them the support that they need to eventually be proficient in English and be able to test well, and then eventually when they do graduate, be able to be productive workers and have success.
Now, is there a program?
Well, there currently is one. We're looking at bolstering it with additional funding, I think, as well, but also recognizing that it's not just Spanish. Granted, Spanish is probably the most prominent. It's 72%.
Yep.
But there's a lot of other languages. You look at different parts of the state.
Exactly.
Like Willimantic is one. Norwich. These in this neck of the woods. Also New Haven, Hartford.
New Britain.
New Britain. They have dozens
of
languages,
Of course,
and one of the proficiency tests is actually have it in their native tongue and language, so that way they can we can truly evaluate how well they're doing, what they know, and their knowledge, and over time transition them to the tests that for English students.
Exactly. I'm sure that the test is pretty easy to administer.
Well, it's a standardized test.
Okay.
I've never actually gotten into the administration, but they've been doing it for a while. So I'm sure they do a good job with it.
Yeah, probably. I would assume so. So let's talk about helping the. We're going to go back for a minute or so. Let's talk about helping the taxpayer in the state of Connecticut.
Well, I think that's kind of the genesis of the whole Moore Commission. Again, it's to try to provide regional efficiencies and municipal opportunities to actually do some things that maybe aren't currently allowed. I think anything we can do. It's a tough environment, budgetary-wise, both on the state level and the municipal level. And I think due to that, we're trying to give them different tools to save money. And because, again, we don't know what the future may bring. So we're trying to give people different opportunities to save taxpayers money. And because we also want to make Connecticut an attractive place to move into and grow your business.
Now, how about helping out local municipalities? How can that work?
Well, right now we've maintained funding. If you look at other states like New Jersey and elsewhere, they've cut their aid to municipal governments. And what has that done? That's actually increased property taxes at the local level. Connecticut, we did provide educational funding last year, I think over $40 million or just about $40 million in addition to what they had previously. But basically, we've kept municipalities flat funded. And while we understand that there's been growth in their budgets, due to contractual obligations and such, at least they didn't go backwards. And I think to that extent, we've done a pretty good job on behalf of the property tax owner.
All right. How about fighting blight?
Yeah, that's an initiative that we're, again, trying to do regionally. Not every town will hire a regional blight officer.
Correct.
So the bill we're putting forward this year will have people have kind of a uniform blight ordinance. And hopefully, the towns will work together. This will probably be something that'll be centered around the city where they do have blight officers, but be able to provide access to some of the inner ring suburbs and suburbs to tap into that and allow them the opportunity to tackle blight in their towns.
Okay. How about municipal newspaper postings?
This is an interesting one. This is a bill that...
enlighten me.
Well, this is another one where we're trying to save towns money.
All right.
There's a law on the books that basically mandates that towns post public notices, whether it be for a town meeting or a hearing process, and they usually have to buy a certain amount of ad space within a newspaper. And with the change in technology and every town having a website, the thought is let's just say there is a budget hearing. If you want more details on the nuts and bolts of that tax hearing, go to the town website.
Right.
So it'll be what they call truncated posting. So they
Okay.
might just need a little bit of space. There'll still be a public notice requirement, but it'll be much less space in the paper, therefore saving them cumulatively over $1 million.
Do you think it'll work?
I think it definitely will work.
All right. And when do you think that's going to be implemented?
Well, it's got to pass.
right.
There is some opposition. The newspapers are concerned about it, in particular. So, we think that we've put in a healthy compromise. We're not saying that towns just have to post it on the website.
Right.
They still will have to post it in the newspaper of record. And from there, they just have to give kind of a snapshot of what they're considering. And then the full notice requirements that we currently have on the books,
Yep.
they can find that on the town website.
Really?
That bill is currently in draft. I suspect that there'll be a public hearing on it next week.
Okay.
And hopefully we'll be able to get it out of the Planning and Development Committee before April.
How about recognizing municipal services and functions?
One of the bills that we're trying to do, that's actually going to be studied this year.
All right.
By the current Moore Commission to find out if there's ways that towns again can pool the resources for training opportunities,
All right.
whether it be for the town assessors or other municipal officials, and make it more efficient in providing both education and future training. And the thought again is that if you are able to do that on a regional level, that towns should be able to save money.
All right.
I think one of the ideas that you see out there is on poll workers
Okay.
and moderators and the registrars. And that might be something where there's a standard set in place,
Okay.
and the training would be through the Secretary of State's office and housed in a local COG or Council of Government.
Okay. Well, Brian O'Connor from the Speaker's office, thanks for coming down, and hopefully we'll have you on again
More
soon.
than welcome. I appreciate the time and the
Not a problem.
opportunity, and thank you.
No problem. We'll see you soon.
Great.
On behalf of Brian, I'm Peter. Thanks, good night, and we'll see you next week.